Good evening and welcome to the one, the only Hog Talk podcast, live from the Sterling Soap and Roastery Studios, part of the Believe in Buzz radio networks, where you can hear us on all podcast platforms, as well as Buzz to 106.7 in Central Arkansas. So please like, rate, and review our podcast. And all live shows are presented to you by Arkansas Brewing Company in downtown Ozark. I'm your host, Porter Hayes, and alongside me is Adam Hall. We're also brought to you by Bet Online, your number one source for all your betting needs. Get all the latest odds, lines, and matchups for NFL, baseball, boxing, golf, and more. Bet Online continues to be the fastest and easiest way to place your wagers. Include live betting and your favorite casino card games available to play right from your phone. Head over to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and get in on the action. Remember to use the promo code BLEAV for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online, where the game starts. And Adam, heartbreaking loss, to heartbreaking end to the game, which we can get into the what ifs and the, best or what later on the decision making. But, before we start that, I want to give a shout out to both teams for what they did for Greg Brooks. And I do want to apologize to Blake Ruffino. When we had him on, we didn't mention, that our thoughts and prayers are with him. So I want to start the show with, our thoughts and prayers are with the family of Greg Brooks, and hopefully that, the recovery and everything goes well. But I love the gesture. And the biggest thing I wanted to bring up is how fitting, and this is how small world football works. They found out about it, the surgery, and then, of course, the two teams that he has previously played for just so happened to play that weekend. So I really thought that it was really crazy how that all unfolded. But, yeah, I really want to send our thoughts and prayers out to the family.
Definitely. I mean, it was on LSU fans, Arkansas fans. I mean, the whole nine. You saw the outpour second half of the week when everything was announced. So, football is family. Everybody understands that, people's lives are what matter. So, everybody showed their continued support for Greg Brooks, even though, he is now on the opponent's side. But that didn't change anything for what he did with Arkansas and just being a human being in general.
And that's where sports still in this day and age can bring us together, and bring two teams, just until that clock strikes, until the opening kickoff, people can come together and really share a common bond with that. And I hate the circumstances of those other, but onto the game. And again, I mean, we talked last week, they didn't necessarily have to win the game, but they had to come out, and I wanted to see fight. I wanted to see passion. Look, the offensive line, they had their feet held to the fire last week. We gave them criticism. Everybody gave them criticism. Yes, there was some penalties, but I'm telling you that they did a lot better. They showed push. They gave KJ time to throw the ball. The run game seemed to get – I know they didn't run the ball as well as we figured they would at this point in the season, but overall it was a really good effort for the offense. Luke Haas is a star born before our eyes. Last week it was his coming out party, and then it's like this week he's like, okay, I'm going to do it again. So we have – and I've said this past 3 years, having a quality tight end can really help this team. And we've already seen glimpses of what it can do for this offense. You've got a tight end and Haas that you can throw to. You got Tesla and Armstrong you can go to, and then a running quarterback. All three aspects of that game that you have. And as this machine starts rolling, again, with that loss to LSU, maybe that was a hard-fought game that can really start to give them motivation moving forward into this week against Texas A&M.
Yeah, there was, a lot of improvements compared to the prior week. There was still, I think, a lot of the penalties. Some were kind of meh. A lot of them, I think, were discipline and mentality. The blatant hold, I think, on one of the touchdowns. But we looked a lot improved. You noticed even with KJ, him moving around the pocket, and when he would take off, he actually had the space to take off versus everything being collapsed around him. So he was able to get out and then create passes too that, we got receivers downfield with his scrambling. So, it bought time and whatnot, especially for Luke Haas. That he got a lot of time added to get behind the defense with KJ running.
That was a very good innovation or what you call improv, where you're running your route and you break off your route and you find it for a touchdown. I seen a lot of trust, and that's where I want to give the biggest kudos to KJ, and I want to give the biggest kudos to the offensive line, because after last week, you could have sat there and been like, just gunning at the offensive line. Hey guys, we're doing this. We need to do that. But the way he was moving around in the pocket, he showed that he still trusted his offensive line. And there's no greater motivation of those guys blocking for him. They see that he still trusts them.
Mm-hmm.
It gained a lot of plays and positive yardage for them. And that heading into this game, and that's where I wanted to bring in having this LSU game before the Texas A&M game. I want to see how that plays out. I want to see if that has any kind of caveat of, yes, it was a hard-fought game. Yes, it was a loss, but it wasn't another crazy loss to a Texas A&M game that happens every single year. And now you're moving on to, say, if you flip it, then now you're moving on to at LSU, at Ole Miss, and at Alabama. Now you had a hard-fought game at LSU. You get to go to Dallas. So, I mean, yes, it is an away game per se, but it's still – I think this will give them some motivation moving forward, and also how their defense was and opened some blitzes. We've seen some blitzing. We've seen some good pressure from the defense. I think they just got gassed in the end.
Yeah, I definitely think at the end, when a lot of the penalties started coming in, kind of like the BYU game, a lot of it came, the second half, their energy level, whatever it was, being down that far into the game, who knows? But it was definitely going into the A&M game. We all talked with our score predictions and whatnot. A lot of them out there were anywhere from 10 to the spread at around 17 or more. Yeah. So I think, the loss by 3 and what is probably going on in these players' head, is maybe lit a candle going into Texas A&M versus if they had just been completely blown out of the water.
And another thing, going into the Texas A&M side of things, you'd mentioned that their quarterback had either got injured or another guy took over. Well, Max Johnson come in, went 7 for 11 for 123 yards and 2 touchdowns against a defense that really hasn't seen him. There's no really film on him this year. Well, now Arkansas had an advantage. We've seen what he can do. We know how to really, whether they go back with Connor or go with Max, we have some film and we have something to prepare for both of them. So that's going to be another aid when it comes to trying to predict this game. But also, how to try to scheme against Bobby Petrino. You've seen what he did at Missouri State. You've seen what he's been able to do at Texas A&M, and you're very familiar with each other. So that's going to be a good battle when it comes to how is, the defense going to scheme up against Texas A&M. But back to the LSU part of it, this was a team, LSU, that, they dropped to Florida State, and they're on the same kind of mission they were last year. There's still hope for them to make it to the SEC championship game out of the West. So, you got their best shot last night. And I'll tell you what, I was very, very proud of the effort and how this team responded, especially with even like what we've said and everybody else, the criticism. You can't do nothing but give them a huge shout out and really be proud of their effort.
Yeah, and like you were talking with the confidence that he, we kind of saw with the offensive line, I think that he also, you started seeing that confidence grow with the wide receivers. He was making throws against LSU that he was not making the first 3 weeks. He was trying to get more wide open passes, if you will, against the first 3 weeks, and he was trying to thread the needle, get the ball where only his receivers could get it, and we just hadn't seen a whole lot of that. I saw a lot of trust, obviously, in Has, but then also I felt like with Armstrong, it's grown a lot too, which he's already showed up the last few weeks, but he just added to that, and it was finally good to see more passes going Broden's way because they're trying to get him involved. I don't know if Satania is just not a part of the offensive scheme or what. I still think that they've got to somehow get him involved.
Yeah. and too, that might be a part of rhythm. You want to try to get these 3 guys, Haas, Armstrong, you get Broden in there, and leave Satania for your special teams guys. But there's could be things that we might not be seeing behind the scenes. And I'm not saying this is any truth. I'm not saying anything. I'm just throwing it out there that maybe he's not getting the routes down. Maybe he's not getting the plays. You know, there's something that he is not coming together to where he's earned that spot. I mean, so, I mean, if you want to use him in some, you know, what do you say, gimmick plays?
Well, I mean, even like, we used Jared Cornelius for
Mhm.
end rounds, or we did some with Davion Warren, even in more recent. So, he's got the speed. So, I mean, just utilize it if you can. It doesn't have to be all the time, but get him in there for 30% of the snaps.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a big thing that moving forward, they got to. I mean, because you look at the production. You know, if you're say you're going up against, look at these defenses that you're about to go up against. That Alabama, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Mississippi State. You know, these defenses, if they know they only got to key on Haas and Armstrong, and now, okay, our linebacker can kind of spy on Haas. You got to get somebody else in there that they're not ready for. Spread it out a little bit. And so, but that, again, building the playbook, building your offense, and we can see things are starting. But, KJ, as you see on the stats before us, he was 21 for 31 with 289, had three touchdown passes. He did get sacked 4 times. And, of course, the 2 interceptions.
Which one of those I think we should take away just because it was a Hail Mary at the end.
Yes. Yeah. That wasn't.
Yeah.
That one was it was, kind of a right there blanket.
Yeah, it was.
Gross. So, I mean, and that's the downfall of, we praise him for trusting his offense and trusting the fact that he was able to move around the pocket, but then he still has that tendency. And I think that's going to go down with time. The trust is starting to build, but he's still the captain. He still feels like he's got to put this team on his back. And you could see that result of that interception and those sacks of, holding onto the ball a little bit too long. Again, I think if Rocket comes back, or, if you get another, we didn't see much AJ Green. He had 3 carries for, no yards on that, after he had that big run last week. So that's where, you're only getting, you had a net 137 yards rushing. So that's going to be a big part of, you really got to get that run game going. Other than KJ. Again, KJ shouldn't be carrying the ball 16 times for 75 yards. Again, they take away 27 yards of those sacks, and he ended up having 48 yards. But you look on the flip side, and Jaden Daniels, he went 20 for 29, had 320. He was only sacked twice, but he had an interception, which was crazy because the very next play we gave it right back to him. So it's –
yeah, it was looking at the start of the game, for LSU, it went, I think it was punt, interception, punt. And then after that, they kind of started settling in. It still wasn't pretty, especially, going into the half with a 3-point game. But you could kind of see, especially with that touchdown at the end of the first half, that they had found their rhythm with our defense. Jaden Daniels was settling in. You knew they were going to go, obviously, trying to score. I didn't think it was going to be that quick. But, you kind of were like, okay, LSU's about to start maybe rolling here. So what are we going to do to stop it? And, I think that a lot of it was clock control. With the new clock rules, I mean, I think we had 9 more minutes than they did time of possession. So we saw, going out of bounds, all that stuff. I mean, clock keeps going, which we had some long drives. It's tough, sitting there dissecting everything as the game was going on. I think one of my biggest irritations was using all 3 timeouts before 11 minutes left in the third quarter.
Yeah, and you got, because look, here's the thing with that. In time of possession, Arkansas had the ball 34 minutes to LSU's 25. So, I mean, but the good thing was you were 8 for 13 on third downs. You did very well. You were 1 for 1 on the fourth down, the fake. I mean, you had some plays that when we talk about, if you're going up a team that has more talent, and you can't, like that drive at the end of the second half, you can't give them extra motivation, knowing they get the ball right back, because you look at that score going to the half, and then that very opening drive, you get the score. So you got to keep your foot on, especially your defense. And it could be a little drive like that LSU's like, okay, we know how we can match up with them now on defense. We know their weaknesses, and all it takes is that one chink in the armor to, open things up. And I think that's what happened last night. But they responded well. And you said, there was times where, the play clock. One case in an instance where KJ was sending the guy in motion with 3 seconds left on play, and Sam pointed. That's on KJ on that one. You got to be, if expect your drive, you can't give them any yardage. You can't give them any penalty yardage and make yourself in a corner. You got to either one. Again, I know we're talking about the timeout issue, but what do you do? Trade a timeout, or you try to just eat that one and take the 5 yards and then keep on going? But you got to be more mature in that situation and knowing when the play clock is, knowing where it's at, and really take command of those drives.
Yeah, the play clock, from what I gathered, was directly in front of either offense. So he's looking right at the play clock. It's something you have to pay. Whether you're looking at it the side of your eye or something, that's always got to be, your eyes have to go there. Especially if it's winding down. So I don't know if it was plays getting in late or just everybody getting lined up, whatever it was, but it was tough to watch. And I didn't try to let it overshadow the rest of the second half, because I always look at, there was other things that they could have done.
Yeah.
So, that's easy to pinpoint or fall back on, but there are other things that they could have fixed. Well, the thing that shot us in the foot too, and right here is we'd get a big play, we'd start building momentum, and then a hold or a penalty or a false start or whatever. The first touchdown that KJ threw, and I think we had the big hold by, I think it was a Bo Limmer, I think.
Yep.
Then we added another 1.5 to 2 minutes onto. Yes, we still scored, but then we took another 1.5 to 2 minutes off the clock because of that.
Yeah, and that's where you go into the halftime. If you could have had an extra possession, that one, you get the chance to score and them get the ball back, opposed to they scored and then get the ball back. Those are huge dynamics of the game. Just 30, 45 seconds doesn't seem like a lot, but if you have 3 timeouts in 45 seconds, that's a lifetime. Another thing I was going to say is, say if KJ's a guy, he's looking at the sideline, and you've got so many people on the sideline. Have somebody be a spotter, like, okay, there's 8 seconds left. Somebody send him a signal, like, okay, we got 8 seconds left. Get just either, if they're giving him the okay to check and change the play, audible, with 10 seconds, 8 seconds left, they need to either audible or you need to be going with the play and run it, because can't burn time, especially in a team like you can look at the next 3 games. You can't give them extra possessions. You can't give them extra yardage, because you're going to be a dogfights these next 3 weeks. And hopefully with them going back on this film, they'll see the stuff that they need to work on. But I think there was a lot more positives than negatives when it comes out of this game on the offensive side and even the defensive side. Yes, I made a statement that they got gashed, and it was in the second half. But there's things where they still went toe-to-toe with one of the top teams in the country. And looking at how everything went down with BYU, who ended up getting beat by Kansas, you can't, like I said, you can't be looking but nothing but optimistic. Of course, be frustrated that you lost, because it was a game that you could have won. But there's a lot more positives moving into next week.
Oh yeah, and it's like a lot of the frustrations and things that I've seen, God forbid, online, starting with last night and even into today, is there was a lot of negative because we lost, but a lot of the same folks that have been so down and out and negative are also the same folks that were calling for a blowout.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of like, which is it? I had us losing by 17. I am perfectly fine. Obviously winning the game, but then playing like we did. I'd rather lose by 3 than lose by 20.
Oh yeah.
That would
have been horrible. Yeah.
And there's things to build on from this game. Yes, I wish we were honestly, 4-0, obviously, but at least 3-1, 2-2 hurts. It hurts to look at, especially when you've got, teams coming up on your schedule that are 4-0. and getting ranked that shouldn't be ranked.
Missouri.
I'm looking at you.
Yeah.
So it's tough, but at the same time, in that situation, it's a lose-lose because fans are going to come after it regardless, no matter how big the loss was or how small the loss was.
And where that stinks is the fact because now you're kind of put behind the 8 ball of you can't have another 3-point loss. You can't have another heartbreaking loss to A&M. So it's almost put you in a position that you kind of got to win this game. We said in the beginning of the year, you got this 4-game stretch. You got to split it. You got to split it 2-2 down the middle. I had them, of course, losing to LSU, but I have them winning again next week. But I also had them beating BYU. So, but yes, it does put you because now you're building this momentum. It's almost like you're the flow of the game. We talk about you're building this momentum, and then there's a setback. I think if you have a heartbreaking loss to A&M, you can't afford to have that. I just think with the momentum, you have this high coming off the game. Yes, you did lose, but you have things to work on. You're going into an A&M game, another battle where it's been just like LSU, 3 points, 1-score games. You've had a chance to win it. Look at Cam Little bouncing back and making 3 field goals last night. You have that aspect. And then, of course, with all the crap that Max Fletcher was getting, people saying that he dude had 2 bad kicks all year and they're calling for his head, Now we're coming in, he gets his confidence back on the fake and, he's back up and big man on campus, with his confidence, all that's moving forward. And hopefully that turns into a win next weekend in Dallas because there's only going to be a couple more games left in Dallas before it goes back to home and home. And I think ending that on a streak would be huge for the fans and, of course, the program.
Yeah, which if the fans haven't heard, next year is the last year for Jerry World and this game, which is I think it adds more to it when it's home and home.
Yeah,
playing on neutral sites, I think, takes away from the atmosphere. But we both looked at this 4 or 5 game stretch we had us coming in 3-0, and I had this as I had this one as a loss.
Yeah.
And then I had A&M as a swing game, and then I had Ole Miss as a win. Yeah. After the BYU game, I was uncertain of how this stretch was going to go because I thought we could easily be looking at a 2-5, which we all know we can't let happen. But now, seeing Ole Miss more, seeing Alabama more, seeing what we've seen of Texas A&M, these are 3 winnable games. And that's not just saying that from the fan standpoint or the Arkansas homer standpoint. That's just facts that these are 3 winnable games.
And I think that gives you hope. Playing how you did against LSU, there's a lot of fighting. You've seen a lot of the players that were tweeting afterwards, like McLaughlin and Dominion, KJ, talking about, look, we lost, but hey, we're ready to get back at it, and I think that's a positive side of it. That yes, they lost, but they're still like, oh, look, we know what's coming up. We only got 1 conference loss.
Yeah.
Hey, you run the table. I'm just saying, hypothetically, you run the table, you're still in a great seat, for being in the SEC West. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying, but that's where you still got a chance to make some noise in this conference. You still have a chance. Not all is lost. I know last week it seemed doom and gloom, but that's just how frustrating that game was. Now we're on to the LSU because we knew how important last week's game was for it to win. Because now you're sitting at 2-2. You could, again, you got 3 games where you could be 2-5, or you could end up making it where you split. Now, look, you split 2 games of this, and you're 4-2 or 4-3 or whatever. You're still sitting pretty moving into the final stretch of the season.
Absolutely.
But we're going to take a quick break. After the break, we'll continue our conversation about the LSU game and really deep dive into the Texas A&M, look ahead to that. And then, of course, we'll preview our special episode tomorrow night at 7 o'clock with former coach Houston Nutt. We'll catch you after the break.
Attention DIYers and home improvement enthusiasts. Are you searching for the right tools and the supplies to tackle your next project? Look no further than Mentor's Hardware Store. With locations in Ozark, Alma, and Clarksville, our vast selection of hardware and building materials is sure to have everything you need, whether you're fixing a leaky faucet or building a new deck. Plus, our knowledgeable staff is always on hand to offer expert advice and guidance. And with our competitive prices and convenient online ordering, Metters Hardware Store is your one-stop shop for all your DIY needs. Visit us today and let's build something amazing together. Are you in need of legal representation? Look no further than the law offices of Robertson, Beasley, Shipley, and Robinson. As the oldest law firm in the River Valley, we have been serving our clients for over 100 years, with locations in Ozark, Fort Smith, and Springfield. Our experienced team of attorneys provide expert guidance and advocacy in a wide range of legal areas, including personal injury, family law, criminal defense, and more. Trust in our history and experience to get the results you deserve. Contact the law offices of Robertson, Beasley, Shipley, and Robinson at 479-782-8813. That's 479-782-8813. Are you looking for a place to grab a cold drink and some delicious food? Look no further than Arkansas Brewing Company. Located at 201 South 1st Street in beautiful downtown Ozark, our establishment offers a wide selection of craft beers and tasty eats. But what sets us apart is our welcoming atmosphere and friendly staff. At Arkansas Brewing Company, you'll always feel like part of the family. So visit Destiny and Christopher Brockett and staff today and see for yourself what makes us the go-to spot for locals and visitors alike. Arkansas Brewing Company, come for the drinks and stay for the friends. Searching for premium brewery products that will take your daily routine to the next level? Look no further than Sterling Soap Company. Our handmade soaps, aftershaves, and balms are made with only the finest ingredients that give you the ultimate grooming experience. With a variety of scents to choose from, there's something for everyone. Plus, our products are crafted in small batches to ensure the highest level of quality. So why wait? Visit www.sterlingsoap.com or visit our retail store at 16 West Walnut Street in Paris, Arkansas. Shop our collection and discover the difference for yourself. Upgrade your grooming routine with Sterling Soap Company.
And welcome back to the Hog Talk podcast and talking a little bit as we wrap up talking about the LSU game moving forward. What I'll end it on is, that last drive, that controversial drive of, the tough spot of, do you let them score or do you try and hold them? And man, it was tough to watch because, look, the team played great.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, the defense was giving up yards. The offense was, but it's hard for me, and this is tough to say because it's the team played great. But it's hard for me to sit there and think that coach didn't – I know you don't want to let them score, but in the essence of letting them score to give yourself – have a chance to have the ball back. As a head coach, I would want the ball in whose hands I have the best faith in. Defense preventing them from scoring or the offense knowing that they've done really well. You let them score and then you don't. I still thought they had a better chance of scoring opposed to trying to hold them, just how the game was going. And it was just hard seeing how much the offense have improved, watching that clock tick. Again, yes, it goes back to burning those timeouts. But, man, I just wish that they would have just let them score and not with 40 seconds left. I mean, let them score with a minute something left. Give KJ and the offense enough time when they're not rushing. You could put a drive together and then give them a chance to at least score and tie the game and put this thing in overtime. Or, hey, drop the balls. Well, let's score and try to go for two and win the game. You never know. Yeah. I just wish they would have gave KJ the chance to come out. And I know that look, if you're on the side of Pittman – the defense, there's no wrong answer because I can see both sides of it, but I'm on the side of I wish they would have let the offense have a chance to come out and score.
Yeah, the group I was watching with, I think in that last little 2+ minutes, we tried to play every which scenario in our, just throwing out there what they should do, what should happen, whatever. And it came out numerous times, just let them score, just to give Arkansas more time. Mm-hmm. You didn't know what Brian Kelly was going to do with their timeouts. I did get a little, I'm not going to say irritated, but I'm like, why are you having to run down all the way to the 10-yard line to call your timeouts? Why can your quarterback not call your timeout?
Well, and I think a lot of that was because again, I think that Brian Kelly was thinking coach was going to let him score. I mean, you're having to, it's almost like you're going to go kick the field goal. You let the clock run down and then you call a timeout. I think that's one of them things that he was thinking, that he's trying to see what Sam Pittman's going to do. And the fact that you're running the clock, you're controlling your side of the ball. And I think whether the quarterback's calling a timeout or he's calling a timeout, you're doing what you need to do on your side of it. Because again, I thought he was thinking, well, they're just going to let us score. I'm going to run this thing down each play as much as possible. Because if there's a minute and 37 seconds left and they just run the play, Arkansas lets them score and there's a minute 24 left. Well, Brian Kelly's letting that thing go all the way down to the minute, 58 seconds, and then say there's 45 seconds left with a kickoff. I mean, you're doing that to ensure that Arkansas is going to have the least amount of time if they got the ball back, but it ended up not happening.
Yeah, and I think I was just more like irritated at him getting outside the coach's box and going all the way down to the 10. Like, you've got a quarterback, you've got a ref nearby. Like, you don't need to be down on the 10-yard line or 5-yard line.
You could have and almost had a tackle.
Exactly. I mean, he pulled a Mike Tomlin on him and, stepping out on the field.
Who was that Ole Miss basketball coach that they gave us such a hard time for being on the court?
Was it Andy?
He had a weird name. I can't remember. Somebody can say it in the comments, but it was the Ole Miss basketball coach, and they had made it that he was still out there on the court like 4 days after the game was over with. But it was hilarious. But yeah, again, moving forward into the Texas A&M game at Jerry's World, it's going to be one of them. I wouldn't say a must win because again, I just think you really need to win this game. I think it's going to be you only lost by 3, so it's like, okay, you don't want another 1 to 3 point loss against Texas A&M because that's going to be another one, that monkey off their back. I think getting the monkey off their back and winning this game it's going to make the LSU game look better, opposed to, all right, they put things together, they fell short against LSU. Now they're getting more things together and they beat Texas A&M. I think that's really going to be a big deal when it comes to next week to see, again, progression. We wanted progression after the BYU game. We've seen it. Now let's see if they can take that, get things together, not use all your damn timeouts in the third quarter, fourth quarter, and then put together a win.
Yeah, and I mean, we've seen already. I mean, I know Texas A&M only put up 27 this yesterday, but I mean, they're looking real quick. They put up 52, 48, and 47, so we know they can score. So that's going to be, what can our defense hold them back a little bit, because we don't want to get a shootout with them. Sorry, we don't want to. I'm not sure that our offense is there yet to get into a 40, 50 point shootout. I'm looking and see they're averaging right at about 40 points a game. They're only allowing 17, but things are different once you get into SEC play. Those numbers are going to shift after you get your non-cons out of the way, because I mean they played a couple of nobodies just like Arkansas did. So
yeah, and also they, Moss, and he had 15. Well, he had 97 yards total. Had 4 for, so he gained 101 yards, had 4 for a loss, 90, but he almost had 100 yards rushing. And then Daniels had 85. So this is going to be the first time where we're really going to have to respect a balanced attack. You look, this is going to be more of a running attack. They had 226 yards rushing and only had 193 yards passing. So if you're coming out with the BYU team that is guns blazing, LSU guns blazing, now you're going to see more of a balanced attack. But again, you got Bobby Petrino back there, and he knows how to. I think the thing that helps with this is Bobby Petrino hasn't seen really how Travis Williams schemes up things a lot. It's not like Mariota. I mean, exactly kind of what he's thinking.
Yeah.
And then of course, if you're breaking in, if Max Johnson's, he gets the start, or they're going to try to go with Connor. You don't know what edge is there for Arkansas side of it. And especially with Bobby Petrino's offense, you're going to go with the guy you trust the most. It's a complex offense to run. So this is going to be a very evenly matched up game. I feel good about the game because it's a game that like you said, it's winnable. They just got to finally put all the pieces together. Can't have those brain farts on offense with the penalties. I mean, you eliminate half your penalties, you could have won the game last night. I mean, you put yourself in a position to score. I mean, it's always little things that's what's I think in the grand scheme of this season so far, that's the most frustrating. It's always these little things like penalties. And well, you didn't get the running game going, but you had the pass game going. Well, your pass game's going or not going really well, but your run game's going. And then the defense. It's just we're waiting for that one game where they finally put everything together, and this game could be it.
Well, and we saw Max Johnson was A&M's quarterback last year when we played him. So, we've seen him before, but obviously it's a different system. I think last year he went 11 for 21 for 151 yards last season against us. I think that was the lowest scoring A&M Arkansas game that there's been so far. It was down in the low 20s. I don't think we're going to see that this weekend. But I know Texas A&M came out favored 6.5, which isn't really a shocker. Not surprised by that, but it's Bobby Petrino's going to try to prepare, but like you said, he's not going to know what he's going to see from our defense. Yeah. Like I said, he doesn't have Barry Odom, who he's seen and played against, and all that. So, do I think he's going to try to pull out the tricks? I do. We saw what happened with Missouri State last season, and this time Petrino has better athletes and more money with Texas A&M than he got up there. So, we'll see what he brings to the table. I think that it's going to be a hard-fought game either way.
Yeah, and, Texas A&M, they're always that one that you look – yeah, they have really good success against Arkansas, and they always seem to have a falling off, Mm-hmm. So they're really coming into this game kind of like BYU. They want to make a statement. Now, look, that we're on a mission. We took care of Auburn 27-10. We want to come in, and we don't want a close game. We want to come in and convincingly beat Arkansas. We want to prove that, hey, look, especially how wide open the West is. There's really not a clear-cut team. And you look at either side. There's not a clear-cut number one team in the SEC. It's for anybody's taking, really. So Texas A&M could be in that prime spot of like, all right, this could be our year where it could be us. And if they come in with that and take advantage of Arkansas and really expose their defense, or they start having, getting the ball, turnovers go their way, I mean, they're coming in the mindset of we want to make a statement because we still got some team play, and we want to, everybody's looking at Alabama. This is the most beatable Alabama is, but I think with Texas and Arkansas's game, it's a rivalry. They're not overlooking that Alabama game coming up because they know how important this game is. And the question I would pose to the audience and even you, who is this game more important for Texas A&M? And I want to look at the levels. I mean, of course, if you overall, it's more important for Arkansas because you can't go into this and fall in the losing column. But you can almost say it's kind of even. Is it more important for Texas A&M or Arkansas to win this game?
Well, so I look at it as it's kind of more important for Arkansas. You can kind of flip it. Texas A&M plays Alabama the week after, whereas we've got Ole Miss and then Alabama. So it's one of those, is A&M going to be looking ahead to that game? It's one of those, that's 2 more games after this A&M one, so we don't need to be looking that far ahead. But from the standpoint of not getting so down on yourself to where the next few games are just potential just knockouts, I mean, I think Arkansas has to win.
Yes, yeah. And I'll just for the argument's sake of it, I'll make a case where it's more important for Texas A&M. Again, what I talked about, the fall off. You beat, say you win Auburn 27-10, then you come in and you beat Arkansas by 14. You win 14, 17 points. That momentum carrying into an Alabama game, you've beat them before too. You won on the last second field goal the year before last, I want to say. Yeah. They beat Alabama. So they're going to the game that they've won before. So you keep that momentum because we've always seen when they drop a game, it seems like the wheels kind of fall off. So you could, again, flip the 50-50, but this is just as important. And I think that's honestly, that's what's going to make this game a very good game. It's going to make it to where both teams are going to be playing hard, because I think both teams have the same amount of risk when it comes to what do we have to lose in this game. I think it's going to make for one hell of a game.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people are, moaning and groaning about the 11 a.m., but it is what it is. I don't care if they suit up at 8 o'clock in the morning. I mean, they need to come prepared. So that's what this week's going to be all about. Time. I think the game time is just more for the fans and what's on TV and whatnot. I think that we need to not think about Petrino so much as our former coach, and just look at it from, he's got an offensive mind, and he's going to have his quarterback prepared. He always does. Oh, yeah. So, that Texas A&M, their defense looked pretty good against Auburn, but I think they rank in the 90s in turnover differential. So that's something that we've got to come out and protect the ball. I think there was a couple of plays where KJ was on the run and lost the football whenever he got hit on a scramble. And I think things like that cannot happen.
Yeah, you got to shape, because you've been, you had such a good turnover margin heading into the BYU game. Then you had the turnovers against BYU. Then you had the interception against, or I guess you can say two. Credit for one. I know that was a Hail Mary, but you're getting these turnovers that are starting to become a problem every game. You've got to shape those up and really coming in this game, limit those again, because you're going up against a team that has more talent than you. You can't give them extra possessions. You can't, especially if this is a tie game or you're down 7, or let's swing it, you're up 7. That 7 point ahead or 7 point behind swing where you're running down the field and then you get a turnover.
Yeah,
what you had now goes immediately back to Texas A&M.
Yeah, and then we see a question here. Could Petrino feel he has something to prove if that happened at Arkansas? I think that's always going to be talked about anytime he plays Arkansas. I think it's more so like last season, even though it was Missouri State, with him being the head coach and coming into Fayetteville is a little bit different than, say, it's going to be now as OC if them playing in Arlington. I don't think it's going to have as much of a factor from his standpoint.
No, he's had his time, and I'll tell you what, I'll go even further back than that. I think I don't know him, but I'm saying just knowing the type of person he is, I think he was one of them that got so much gratification from watching the John L. Smith days, the Chad Morris days. I think that gave him and his ego that much more gratification of knowing, if they would have kept me, we would have kept winning. And now look at them now that I'm gone. I think he's that type of person. I think he's more focused on trying to prove to himself as a whole that he still can coach in the SEC. I don't think he's got anything to prove to it. I don't think this has anything to do with Arkansas anymore. I think it has to do with himself of, I want to prove that I'm still one of the top OCs. I still got it. I went to Missouri State. But then again, he went to UNLV and then jumped ship right back to Jimbo. So
he pulled a Bobby Petrino, and that's what he's done in the past.
Shane Altman.
Yeah, that too. Oh yeah, but it's I look at it like it's done and gone. It's been 11 years now, or however many years. So all Bobby Petrino has to do is pull up any social media, and he'll have a plethora of Arkansas fans that are still either wanting him to, or thinking that he should never been fired, or wanting him to come back. So if he wants the love from Arkansas, there's plenty out there. So it's just one of those, when it comes down to us playing each other, all the gloves need to come off.
Well, look at it. We're going to our guest tomorrow night. There's still people who want Houston Nutt back. Winning cures all. And this is nothing against Bobby Petrino. This is nothing against Houston Nutt. Winning cures all. I've said that when it comes to the War Memorial debate. I've said it when it comes to Bobby Petrino. I've said it when it comes to Houston Nutt. If Arkansas starts winning, they're not going to remember, or they're going to remember, but they're not going to be bringing that up, because, Sam Pittman's getting us to that point to where Bobby had us. He's getting us to the point to where Houston Nutt had us. and again, we have Houston Nutt coming on tomorrow night at 7. We're going to talk about the season a little bit, talk about his new documentary on Hogs Plus Resurgence. But again, a guy that had a plane flying over the stadium wanting him gone, there's still people 25 years later that are talking about him coming back. And I know that it would never happen. I'm just saying there's still that people because of what he did, the success he did have. And the same with Bobby Petrino. We know that if they really wanted to put pen to paper, you probably have 40 to 45% of the fan base that would be willing to take him back. And there might be more. I don't know.
I think there's probably more. And even the ones that may be against it at first, like you said, winning cures all, if he starts doing what he did before, then it's completely forgotten about.
Yep.
Or that's just a little blemish on the record and they look the other way and so on and so forth. They don't care anymore. So, it's one of those. But going back to this season, and I know it's a question that we've asked a few times, and we may ask it a few more times before the season's over. Looking back at 2021, the 9-win season under Sam Pittman, do we feel like that was a fluke season?
Yeah, I mean that's what it makes. Yeah, and this is where I know there's been comparisons of Coach Pittman and Mike Anderson, but if this goes into that one fluke year, you're going to start putting him into the Brett Bielema discussion because everything was going good for Brett. Then he got cocky, arrogant, went down to Texas, started saying the things down there in Texas about those type of players won't work in his system. Then he had the TV show, being Brett Bielema, had the newborn. Then he had all them things going on, and it just like and then of course Pittman and Enos left, and you've seen just everything fall off. You got to keep winning. That's just how it is. And not saying you got to win 9-10 games every single year, but you've at least got to go 500 or above in SEC play and win all your non-conference games, or give or take every other year, to be where you're competitive. You can't keep on having these 5, 6, 7 win seasons because, again, like all the fans say, are we, no matter what history says, are we accepting mediocrity? And you can't accept it.
We were just going back and talking to the group I was with last night about that season compared to now and what has happened since Pittman's taken over. And, our biggest thing with going back and looking at that 2020 or 2021 season, or the super seniors that we had on the team, and, was that a big effect on it? Was it coaching? Like, we're trying to figure out what it is then versus now that has, was that the peak, or are we going to get back to that spot?
Yeah, and it's hard to tell because, with your new coaching staff, with House, and this is the thing, I think it's more positives than negatives. I mean, you got a new defensive coordinator, you got a new, and this is not making excuses because, what we had predicted or what I had predicted at the beginning of the year, but you still have to look back of this is a whole new coaching staff on both sides of the ball. Sam Pittman's been really successful in the transfer portal. He's been really successful in not only getting the transfer portal guys. Look at the transfer guys he's got this year in Armstrong and Tesla that has already went above and beyond what they did last year. They've already proven to us they're SEC receivers. They're not just D2 kids, or community college and D2 kids. He's produced people. He's put people in the NFL. And so there is that glimmer of you get things rolling, you buy in, and it from the way the players are talking, still bought in. And that's the only people that matter. We mean nothing in the grand scheme of this football program. We just talk and react, but our opinions doesn't mean jack squat when it comes to the people inside that building. That's the family. That's the inner circle. And that's the only ones that really matter when it comes to how are they going to respond. And I think I just have that gut feeling. I hope that this turns into a gut feeling that I'm right of. I think they're finally going to put everything together and bring home a win and get this thing to where it's where we thought this team could be. Even if it's 8 wins, it's like get it to better where it was last year and show progress. That's all I'm asking.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Adam, that was another quick show again for us tonight. Again, hopefully we're going to be celebrating a Texas A&M win when we come back next Sunday. But again, we have Coach Houston Nutt on the show tomorrow. Look, if you have any questions you want us to ask him, join in, drop some questions. Our DMs are open. Throw us your questions. We'll open them up and ask him and answer as much as we can as possible.
Yeah, and if you haven't watched Resurgence on Hogs Plus, maybe you'll want to more before the show, after the show, but it is definitely something worth watching.
Exactly. Well, that will do it for another episode of the Hog Talk podcast. For Adam Hall, I'm Porter Hayes, and we will catch you tomorrow night at 7 o'clock.